Driverly.com Unlimited Drama Series.
Chapter 1. The Perfect Lie. They say the devil's in the details, but in my case, he was hiding in my wife's credit card statements. My name is Rick Morrison, and I used to think I was living the American dream. 41 years old. Successful IT security consultant. Beautiful wife. 2 great kids. And a house in Millbrook Heights that screamed, "We made it." The kind of place where everyone drives German cars and pretends their marriages are as perfect as their lawns. I should have known something was wrong when Laura started buying lingerie from Victoria's Secret. Not because she was buying it. Hell, I'm not complaining about that. But because she was buying it in colors I'd never seen her wear. Black lace, red satin. The kind of stuff that makes a man's heart race. Except mine was racing for all the wrong reasons. "Honey, did you pick up something special for our anniversary?" I asked one Tuesday morning, watching her sip her organic fair trade coffee like it held the secrets of the universe. Laura barely looked up from her phone. "What are you talking about?" "The charge from Victoria's Secret. $147. She froze for exactly 2 seconds. In my line of work, you learn to notice these micro expressions. 2 seconds is a lifetime when someone's trying to craft a lie. "Oh, that. Yeah, I thought I'd surprise you." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You'll see it soon enough." That was 3 weeks ago. I'm still waiting for that surprise. Laura Morrison, née Patterson, is what they call a catch. 39 years old, legs that go on for miles, blonde hair that costs more to maintain than my car payments, and a job as PR director at Hartwell and Associates that pays her enough to look down on my 6-figure income. She's the kind of woman other men notice, and she knows it. The kind who can work a room at a charity gala and have every husband eating out of her palm, while their wives shoot daggers with their eyes. We met 12 years ago at a corporate mixer. I was the guy in the corner making sarcastic comments about the appetizers, and she was the center of attention telling stories about her latest client. Somehow she found my cynicism charming. Or maybe she just liked the challenge of reforming a smartass. For a while, it worked. We had Jamie when Laura was 28 and Chloe 3 years later. I thought we were building something real, a family, a life, the kind of partnership where you face the world together and laugh at its absurdities. But somewhere along the way, Laura stopped laughing at my jokes and started rolling her eyes. She stopped asking about my day and started staying late at the office. She stopped wearing the lingerie I bought her and started buying her own. The morning everything changed started like any other. Jamie, my 13-year-old gaming prodigy, was arguing with Chloe about whose turn it was to feed the dog. Chloe, 10 going on 30, was winning the argument through sheer force of personality. "Dad, tell Jamie it's his turn," she demanded, hands on her hips, in a perfect imitation of her mother. "Tell Chloe I fed Buster yesterday," Jamie countered, not looking up from his phone. "I'll tell you both something," I said, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, the one that says, "World's okay as Dad." Buster's looking at all of us like we're idiots, and he's probably right. Laura swept into the kitchen like a hurricane in designer heels. She grabbed her travel mug, kissed the kids on their foreheads, and barely acknowledged my existence. "I'll be late tonight," she announced. "Client dinner." "Which client?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would be vague. "The Morrison Group. Big presentation tomorrow." The Morrison Group. Funny how she never mentioned that our shared last name might be a conflict of interest. Funnier still how she'd been having a lot of client dinners lately. After she left, I helped the kids get ready for school and tried to shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with my life. It's like when you're debugging code and you know there's an error somewhere, but you can't quite put your finger on it. You can feel it lurking, waiting to crash the whole system. That afternoon, I was working from home when my phone buzzed. A text from Laura. "Dinner running long. Don't wait up." I stared at the message for a long time. No emoji, no "love you." Just a cold, efficient update, like she was reporting to her boss instead of talking to her husband. That's when I decided to do something I'd never done before. Something that went against every principle of trust and respect I'd been raised with. I logged into our cell phone account and pulled up Laura's usage records. The number that appeared most frequently wasn't mine. It wasn't her office. It wasn't her mother or her sister or any of her girlfriends. It was a number I recognized, though I wished I didn't. Marcus Lane. Marcus fucking Lane, our so-called family friend. The guy who'd been coming to our barbecues for 3 years. The one who always complimented Laura's potato salad and asked me about work with that patronizing smile that made me want to punch his perfectly straight teeth. Marcus, with his expensive suits and his law degree from Georgetown. Marcus, who drove a BMW and lived in a house that made ours look like a starter home. Marcus, who was married to Rebecca, a quiet woman who always seemed to fade into the background at social gatherings. I sat in my home office staring at the phone records, feeling like the world's biggest fool. The call started about 6 months ago. Short at first, then longer. Recent calls lasting an hour or more. Late night calls, early morning calls. Calls that happened when Laura was supposedly in meetings. My hands were shaking as I cross-referenced the dates with Laura's calendar. Every client dinner corresponded with a call to or from Marcus. Every late meeting was followed by a lengthy conversation with our family friend. I felt something die inside my chest. Not dramatically, not with fireworks or screaming, just a quiet, sad little death. Like a plant finally giving up after weeks without water. But along with that death came something else. Something cold and calculating and completely foreign to the man I'd always thought I was. I started planning. Chapter 2. The Evidence. The thing about being an IT security consultant is that you develop certain skills, not hacking. I'm not some movie stereotype breaking into government databases, but you learn about digital footprints. You understand how much information people leave behind without realizing it. You know that privacy is mostly an illusion, and that the truth has a way of surfacing if you know where to look. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own life. I didn't break any laws, I didn't hire a private investigator or plant tracking devices. I just started paying attention to the information that was already available to me. Laura and I shared a credit card account. Perfectly legal for me to check the statements. What I found made my stomach turn. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to. Always for 2 people. Always on nights when she claimed to be working late. A hotel charge from the Marriott downtown. Not for a room, just the bar and restaurant. But the amount suggested drinks and appetizers for 2. I started taking screenshots of everything. Building a file. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that there was some innocent explanation. But the evidence kept piling up like snow in a blizzard. The GPS tracking on our family plan showed Laura's phone at locations that didn't match her stated schedule. While she was supposedly in client meetings, her phone was at Marcus's law firm. While she was allegedly working late, her phone was at the Marriott or at a wine bar across town or parked outside Marcus's house. I felt like a stalker investigating my own wife, but I couldn't stop. Every new piece of evidence was another nail in the coffin of our marriage, and I was the one hammering them in. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Laura was at another client dinner, and I was helping Chloe with her math homework when my phone rang. "Rick, it's Rebecca Lane." Marcus's wife. I'd probably spoken to her a dozen times over the years, mostly polite small talk at parties. She had a soft voice and a nervous laugh, the kind of person who apologized for taking up space. "Hey, Rebecca, what's up? I was wondering, is Laura with you tonight?" My blood turned to ice water. "No, she's at a work dinner." "Why?" A long pause. "Marcus said he was having dinner with a client tonight, but his secretary told me his calendar was clear. I thought maybe it was a double date or something." I closed my eyes. Rebecca knew. Maybe not consciously, but some part of her understood what was happening. "Rebecca," I said carefully, "what time did Marcus leave for his dinner?" Around 6:30, He was dressed really nice. Too nice for a work dinner, if you know what I mean. I knew exactly what she meant. Listen, can I call you back? I need to check on something. After I hung up, I sat in my office staring at the wall. Rebecca's call wasn't just a coincidence, it was confirmation. She was suspicious, too. Probably had been for a while. The betrayed spouses, reaching out to each other without even realizing it. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. When Laura came home at 11:30, smelling like wine and expensive cologne that wasn't mine, I was waiting in the living room. "How was your client dinner?" I asked. She kicked off her heels and stretched. "Exhausting. The Morrison Group is demanding, but I think we made progress." "That's great. What did you eat?" A flicker of panic in her eyes. "What?" "At dinner. What did you eat?" "Oh, the salmon. It was good." I nodded and smiled. "Funny thing, I was looking at the credit card statement earlier. The charge from tonight was at Chez Laurent. They don't serve salmon." Laura went very still. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. You lied about where you were, you lied about what you ate, and you came home smelling like another man's cologne. Rick, you're being paranoid." "Am I?" "Because I also noticed you've been calling Marcus Lane quite a bit lately." "Want to explain that?" The color drained from her face. "We're friends. We talk. Friends don't usually talk for 2 hours at midnight." She tried to rally, to turn it back on me. "Are you spying on me, going through my phone records?" "Our phone records, and yes, I am. Because my wife has been lying to me for months, and I wanted to know why." Laura stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to decide whether to come clean or double down on the lie. She chose the lie. "You're being ridiculous. Marcus and I are friends. If you can't handle that, maybe you should examine your own insecurities." "My insecurities?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Right. Well, here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow night, you and I are going to have dinner with Marcus and Rebecca. A nice, friendly double date. And you're going to look Rebecca in the eye and tell her what good friends you and her husband are." "Rick, that's not what? Not fair?" "You're absolutely right. It's not fair that Rebecca has to find out her husband is cheating on her. It's not fair that our kids have to grow up in a house full of lies. But here we are." Laura's mask finally slipped. "You bastard. Now we're getting somewhere." The real Laura, finally making an appearance. She stormed upstairs and I heard our bedroom door slam. I sat in the living room until dawn, planning my next move. The funny thing about betrayal is that it clarifies things. All the doubt, all the second guessing, all the wondering if you're crazy or paranoid, it just evaporates when you finally see the truth. Laura wasn't the woman I'd married. Maybe she never had been. Maybe I'd been in love with a performance, a carefully crafted image, designed to get her what she wanted. But if she could perform, so could I. Chapter 3. The Setup. The next morning, Laura tried to pretend nothing had happened. She came downstairs in her usual armor of makeup and designer clothes, kissed the kids goodbye, and barely acknowledged my existence. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept checking her phone. After she left, I called in sick to work and spent the day making preparations. First, I called Rebecca. "Hi, Rebecca, it's Rick Morrison." "Oh, hi, Rick." She sounded surprised. "Is everything okay?" "Actually, I wanted to invite you and Marcus over for dinner tonight. Laura mentioned that you four should get together more often." A pause. "That's very nice, but I should check with Marcus first." "Of course. But between you and me, I think Laura has something she wants to discuss with both of you. Something important." I could hear the curiosity in her voice. "What kind of something?" "I'd rather let her explain it herself. But I think you'll find it illuminating." After I hung up, I called Marcus's office. "Lane, Patterson and Associates. This is Marcus Lane." "Marcus, it's Rick Morrison. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." His voice immediately became guarded. "Rick, no, not at all. What can I do for you?" "Laura and I would like to have you and Rebecca over for dinner tonight. She has something she wants to share with both of you, and she insisted I call personally." "Tonight? That's pretty short notice." "I know, but Laura was very specific about the timing. She said it couldn't wait." I could practically hear the wheels turning in his head. Was this a trap? Did I know something? Or was Laura planning to tell me about their affair herself, and she wanted him there for moral support? What time? He finally asked. 7 o'clock. And Marcus? Laura specifically asked me to tell you to dress nicely. She wants this to be special. After I hung up, I spent the afternoon organizing my evidence. Photos printed out, credit card statements highlighted, phone records compiled into a neat timeline. Everything organized in a folder labeled The Apology, because that's what this was going to be, an apology. Just not the kind Laura was expecting. At 6:30, I was in the kitchen putting the finishing touches on dinner when Laura walked in. She'd changed clothes since morning, wearing a black dress that I'd never seen before, with jewelry that seemed too expensive for a casual dinner with friends. You actually cooked? She asked, sounding surprised. Salmon, I said, not looking up from the stove. Your favorite, apparently. She flinched but didn't respond. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 o'clock. Marcus and Rebecca stood on our doorstep, both looking uncertain. Marcus was wearing an expensive suit that seemed too formal for a dinner.
She left this in your apron. You didn't even throw it away.
I forgot.
You forgot a woman's lipstick in your...
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Her party. Rebecca wore a simple blue dress that made her look prettier than usual, though she seemed nervous. Come in, I said, playing the perfect host. Can I get you both a drink? We made small talk while I served cocktails. Marcus kept glancing at Laura, trying to read her expression. Laura was performing her usual social butterfly routine, but I could see the strain underneath. Rebecca seemed confused by the whole situation, like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. So, Marcus finally said, Laura mentioned she had something important to discuss. I smiled and raised my glass. Actually, I'm the one with something to say. I wanted to apologize. Laura went very still. Rick, no, honey, let me finish. I've been thinking about our conversation last night, and I realized I owe Marcus an apology. I accused him of something terrible, something that could damage his reputation and his marriage. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Marcus relaxed slightly. Well, I appreciate that, Rick. We all say things we don't mean when we're what? Suspicious of our spouses? Worried that the people we trust most in the world might be lying to us? I walked over to the kitchen counter and picked up my folder. The thing is, Marcus, I wasn't wrong about the facts, just about what I should do with them. I opened the folder and pulled out the first photograph. It showed Laura and Marcus entering the Marriott Hotel together, his hand on the small of her back in a gesture that was definitely not platonic. Rebecca gasped. This was taken 3 weeks ago, I continued, handing the photo to Rebecca. The same night Laura told me she was working late on the Morrison Group presentation. Rick, stop, Laura said, her voice shaking. But I was just getting started. I pulled out the credit card statements, the phone records, the timeline I'd so carefully constructed. Here's what I discovered, I said, spreading the papers out on the coffee table like I was presenting evidence in court. 6 months of lies, 6 months of secret phone calls, expensive dinners, and hotel visits. 6 months of my wife fucking her best friend's husband. Rebecca was staring at the evidence with tears in her eyes. Marcus looked like he wanted to bolt for the door. This is insane, Marcus said. You can't what? Tell the truth? Show Rebecca what her husband has been doing behind her back. Because that's all I'm doing, Marcus. I'm apologizing for keeping secrets. I turned to Rebecca, who was holding the photograph with shaking hands. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But mostly, I'm sorry that your husband is a lying, cheating piece of shit who doesn't deserve you. The room exploded into chaos. Rebecca started crying. Marcus started shouting. Laura was screaming at me to stop, to think about what I was doing to our family. But I felt calm for the first time in months, clear-headed, like I'd finally debugged the error in my life's code. There's more, I said, pulling out the final piece of evidence. Text messages. I managed to recover some deleted conversations from Laura's phone backup. I handed Rebecca a printout of the most damning messages. Laura telling Marcus she loved him. Marcus complaining about his boring wife. Both of them laughing about how clueless their spouses were. Rebecca read them in silence, tears streaming down her face. Then she looked up at Marcus with an expression I'd never seen before. Pure, cold hatred. "Get out," she whispered. "Rebecca, let me explain." "Get out!" She was on her feet now, screaming. "Get out of this house! Get out of my life! I never want to see you again!" Marcus tried to approach her, but she backed away like he was radioactive. "Don't touch me! Don't ever touch me again!" He looked at Laura, desperate. "This is your fault. You said he didn't suspect anything." Laura was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Rick, please, think about Jamie and Chloe. Think about our family." I looked at my wife, my beautiful, lying, cheating wife, and felt nothing but pity. "I am thinking about them," I said. "I'm thinking they deserve better than growing up in a house built on lies." Marcus grabbed his coat and headed for the door. Rebecca was right behind him, but she stopped and turned back to me. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for telling me the truth." After they left, Laura and I stood in our living room, surrounded by the wreckage of our marriage. She was still crying, but I could see the anger building underneath the tears. "You've destroyed everything," she said. "No," I replied. "You did that 6 months ago. I just cleaned up the mess." Chapter 4. The Fallout. The next few days were like living in a war zone. Laura alternated between tearful apologies and furious accusations. One minute she was begging for forgiveness, promising to end things with Marcus and go to counseling. The next minute, she was screaming that I'd humiliated her, that I'd destroyed her reputation, that I was a vindictive bastard who couldn't handle the fact that she'd found someone better. I documented everything, recorded conversations on my phone, saved voicemails, took photos of the broken lamp she threw at me during one particularly heated argument. The kids knew something was wrong, of course. You can't have World War III happening in your living room without the children noticing. Jamie, being 13 and naturally suspicious of adult behavior, asked me directly what was going on. "Mom's been lying to us," I told him, "about a lot of things. We're probably going to get divorced." He took it better than I expected. "Is it because of that guy Marcus?" "Smart kid. What makes you ask that?" "He's been calling a lot, and Mom gets weird when his name comes up." Chloe, being younger, was more confused than anything. She kept asking when things would go back to normal, and I had to explain that sometimes normal changes, and that's okay. "Will you still be our dad?" she asked one night when I was tucking her in. "Forever and always," I promised. "No matter what happens between Mom and me, that will never change." Meanwhile, the suburban gossip mill was working overtime. Rebecca had apparently told her sister, who told her book club, who told their neighbors, and so on. Within a week, everyone in Millbrook Heights knew that the Morrisons and the Lanes were getting divorced, and why. I started getting phone calls. Some were supportive, friends who wanted to make sure I was okay, neighbors who'd always suspected something was off about Marcus. Others were more awkward, mutual friends trying to stay neutral, people who didn't know whose side to take. The most interesting call came from Neil Hoffman, my old college roommate who'd become a cop and then moved into private security. We'd stayed in touch over the years, but we weren't super close. Still, he called me on a Thursday night and got straight to the point. "Heard about Laura," he said. "You doing okay?" "Been better," I admitted. "You need anything? Legal advice? Someone to talk to? Someone to beat the shit out of Marcus Lane?" I laughed despite everything. "Thanks, but I think I've got it handled." "You sure? Because I've been asking around about your boy Marcus, and he's not as clean as he pretends to be." That got my attention. "What do you mean?" "Nothing criminal, but he's got a reputation. This isn't the first time he's fooled around with a client's wife. There was a situation a couple years ago with a woman named Jennifer Walsh. Her husband found out, raised hell, but Marcus managed to smooth things over." "How?" "Money. Lots of it. The husband was having some tax problems, and suddenly they went away. Marcus has connections. I filed that information away for later use. Thanks for the heads up." "Rick, be careful. Guys like Marcus don't like being embarrassed. And you embarrassed the hell out of him." Neil was right to be concerned. 2 days later, I found out just how vindictive Marcus could be. I was at work when my boss, Dave Kellerman, called me into his office. Dave was a good guy, the kind of manager who trusted his team and stayed out of their way. But he looked uncomfortable as I sat down. "Rick, I need to ask you about something, and I want you to know this is just a formality." "Okay, We got a call yesterday from a lawyer, Marcus Lane from Lane, Patterson and Associates. He's claiming you hacked into his personal accounts and stole confidential information. My blood ran cold. That's bullshit, Dave. You know I would never. I know. But he's threatening to file charges, and the company lawyers want me to investigate. They need to see your work computer, check your browsing history, that kind of thing. I thought about the evidence I'd gathered, all of it obtained legally, from accounts I had legitimate access to or information that was publicly available. But Marcus was a lawyer. He knew how to make accusations that would cause maximum damage, even if they couldn't be proven. Dave, everything I did was legal. I checked my own family's phone records and credit card statements. I didn't hack anything. I believe you, but I have to follow protocol. You understand. I understood perfectly. Marcus was trying to destroy my career the same way I destroyed his marriage. The difference was, I'd told the truth. He was telling lies, but lies, told by a lawyer to the right people, could be just as damaging as the truth. That afternoon, I called Neil back. Remember that offer to help? I said. I'm ready to take you up on it. Chapter 5. The Counterattack. Neil met me at a bar called Murphy's, the kind of place where cops and ex-cops went to drink and complain about the world. It was dark and loud and perfect for the kind of conversation we needed to have. So Marcus is trying to fuck with your job, Neil said after I'd explained the situation. He's claiming I hacked his accounts. It's bullshit, but he's got connections and I don't. Neil nodded and took a sip of his beer. Here's what I found out about your boy. Marcus Lane has been playing this game for years. He targets married women, usually clients or wives of clients, seduces them, has his fun, then moves on. When husbands find out and make noise, he uses his legal connections to shut them up. How? Intimidation, mostly. Threatens lawsuits, claims harassment. Makes their lives difficult until they back down. He's good at it because he understands the system. So, what do I do? Neil smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. We play by his rules, but we play better. Over the next hour, Neil laid out a plan that was both elegant and ruthless. We were going to destroy Marcus Lane's reputation the same way he was trying to destroy mine, with the truth delivered at exactly the right moment to exactly the right people. The thing about guys like Marcus, Neil explained, is that they think they're smarter than everyone else. They get sloppy because they don't think anyone will call them on their shit. Step 1 was gathering more evidence. Not about the affair. I already had plenty of that. But about Marcus's pattern of behavior, his other victims, his methods of silencing people who got in his way. Neil had contacts in the legal community, people who'd heard rumors about Marcus over the years. Within a week, we had statements from 3 other men whose wives had been seduced by Marcus. None of them had spoken up before because Marcus had scared them into silence, but they were willing to talk now that someone was finally taking him on. Step 2 was timing. Marcus was up for partner at his firm, a promotion that would make him wealthy and powerful. The decision was being made by the senior partners, men who cared deeply about the firm's reputation. Step 3 was delivery. We needed to make sure the information reached the right people in a way that couldn't be ignored or suppressed. You sure you want to do this? Neil asked as we finalized our plans. Once we pull this trigger, there's no going back. Marcus is going to come after you with everything he's got. I thought about Laura, who was still living in our house but sleeping in the guest room. I thought about my kids, who were caught in the middle of a war they didn't understand. I thought about Rebecca, who'd called me twice to thank me for telling her the truth and to let me know she was filing for divorce. He's already coming after me, I said. At least this way, I'm shooting back. The plan went into motion on a Monday morning. Neil had arranged for copies of our evidence file to be delivered to every senior partner at Lane, Patterson, and Associates. Not just the affair with Laura, but the pattern of behavior going back years. The other victims. The intimidation tactics. The whole ugly picture of who Marcus Lane really was. At the same time, I was meeting with my company's lawyers to present my defense against Marcus's hacking allegations. I brought my own evidence, screenshots showing that all the information I'd gathered came from accounts I had legitimate access to, along with a detailed timeline proving I'd never attempted to access Marcus's personal systems. But the real coup de grace came at noon, when Neil's contact at the local newspaper published an article titled, "Local Attorney Accused of Pattern of Sexual Misconduct." The article was carefully written to avoid libel. Everything was attributed to sources, presented as allegations rather than facts, and focused on the pattern of behavior rather than specific incidents. But it was devastating. My phone started ringing almost immediately. First was Dave, my boss, calling to let me know that Marcus had withdrawn his hacking allegations. Funny thing, Dave said. His lawyer called this morning and said there had been a misunderstanding. Apparently, they don't want to pursue the matter anymore. The second call was from Rebecca. She was crying, but they sounded like tears of relief rather than sadness. "Did you see the newspaper?" she asked. "I saw it. There are other women, other wives he did this to. I'm not crazy, Rick. I'm not the only one." "No, you're not. Thank you. For everything. For showing me the truth. For making sure people know what he really is." The third call was from Laura. She was at work, and she sounded panicked. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I defended myself. You destroyed him. His career, his reputation, everything. He tried to destroy mine first. I just did it better." There was a long silence, then, "You bastard. You vindictive, petty bastard." "Probably," I agreed. "But I'm a vindictive, petty bastard who tells the truth. That makes me better than both of you." I hung up and turned off my phone. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Chapter 6. The Reckoning. The aftermath was swift and brutal. By